Welcome back. It is now time for Campaign Chronicles, our daily look at French politics in the very last straight now of the French presidential election campaign. The first round of voting, of course, coming up on Sunday. And with me to discuss all the latest happenings in French politics is our French politics editor, Mark Perelman. Good evening to you, Mark. And also with us on set is James Creedon from the media desk. He'll have the latest buzz on the campaign. Good evening, James.
Catherine.
What we're going to start off with, though, Mark, straight away, is the latest polls. Everyone's glued to these opinion polls. What are they telling us now?
Well, the very latest poll is a little bit reassuring for Nicolas Sarkozy. The polls have been rather bad for him.
That's to put it lightly.
Yes, exactly. And so in the first round, we'll see the figures right now, he comes out on top with 28% of voting intentions ahead of his main rival, socialist François Hollande with 26%. Number 3 is Marine Le Pen, the far-right leader, with 16%, getting some breathing room over the far-left leader, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who had been challenging her for the third position. Let's just remind that only the top 2 vote-getters make it to the second round, which is scheduled on May 6th. And for the second round, the prediction is that François Hollande will come out on top, according to this IFOP poll, 53.5% versus 46.5%. It's probably one of the narrowest gap we've seen. It's been more or less 6%, but it's gone up to 12 or even 15%. So what Nicolas Sarkozy is hoping is that some people who are ashamed of voting for him will eventually do so. They might not like him as a person, but they believe he might be a better leader. His supporters are telling us that, the credibility issue is the one where Nicolas Sarkozy comes out on top, according to some quality polls, as they call it, compared to those quantity polls that we've just seen.
Okay, so he's hoping that people are kind of staying secretive about voting for him, but they will come out on the day.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's move on now to a controversy over whether the exit poll results will be published before 8 p.m. on Sunday. That's mandated by law, but we've moved on a lot since the last election 5 years ago, haven't we?
Yes, but the law hasn't moved. Basically, the law says that you cannot, as a person or as an entity, give out exit polls or predictions before the last voting station closes, and it's at 8 p.m. It's generally in large cities like Paris, where the voting booths are shut at 8 p.m. And so you're prevented to do so, and all the media in France have this constraint. But foreign media, they do not need to abide by the law. And some, especially in neighboring Belgium or Switzerland, have already said that as soon as the first exit polls are available, around 6 p.m. Paris time on Sunday, well, they will talk about it on their radio or TV stations, and they will have no problem. And so the question is, what are the French media going to do? The Daily Libération indicated that it might do so and has invited people to go on the Libération website at 6:30 p.m. We're told the major news agency AFP is debating what to do. Other French media, including France 24, have decided that they will abide by the law. And François Hollande, the poll favorite, the socialist candidate, thinks it's a good idea. He told so to our Clovis Casali, earlier today in Bordeaux.
For there to be any results, people have to vote, and voters vote till 8 p.m, and that needs to be respected. It's not the right way to go about it, and it should be punished, because I want the next president to be elected with the highest possible turnout.
Yes. Strangely enough, one person thinks it's a little bit obsolete to have such rules, and he happens to be the president. Let's take a listen to Nicolas Sarkozy this morning on Europe 1 radio.
It doesn't surprise me now, because the world has become a village. We have rules which are sometimes out of date. Everyone knows that. It's somewhat hypocritical, but that's the way the world is. Everybody is tied to one another. Let's not imagine that we can go back in time. Where I'm campaigning, it's the 21st century, not the 20th century.
But the president is really unhappy about all these electoral rules. He even went further when he attacked the equal airtime rule, which has been imposed for several weeks here in France.
On broadcast media, and
it
makes our life quite difficult, doesn't it?
All 10 candidates have equal airtime, and Nicolas Sarkozy thinks it's just ludicrous. So it's very strange to see a president attacking the very rules governing the presidential elections. Let's take another listen at Nicolas Sarkozy.
I imagine it's not that simple for you. Once every 5 years, you see these people that you hadn't heard of before. I'm not convinced it's a perfect example of democracy, though. Let's just say that every 5 years, everyone gets to have his Cannes festival.
Some might say he could have done something about it in the last 5 years, but hey, look, no time now. I suppose Parliament not in session.
But it's true that the media already also have complained that it's ludicrous to have candidates polling at 0.5% having equal airtime than the big guns.
But that's the rule for now.
That's the rule for now.
What are they saying about it on the blogs and on Twitter, James?
Oh, I mean, it's a debate that it's across social media because it's affecting social media, and the whole it's not just a case of whether the French media will rebroadcast what the foreign media are saying. It's also will social media.
8 p.m. deadline.
That's right. So it's this window between about 6:30 p.m. and 8 p.m. on election night when the first exit poll results come out and when polling closes. Will people talk about it illegally in that time period? Now, there's been talk of fines, etc. for people who retweet results or share it online, which is pretty extraordinary. So let's take a look at some of the reactions. One guy saying here, in order to avoid this same debate in another 5 years, why don't we just ban exit polls or, close all of the polls at 6:30? So somebody trying to come up with a pragmatic solution to this problem. Elsewhere, somebody jokingly saying if you're having a quiet girls' night in, just retweet the results and you'll have 15 big policemen coming through the door, way of livening up the election evening.
At a price, though, there's a €75,000 fine.
Right, so
I don't know who.
An eventful election night, shall we say, in that person's world.
It certainly would be.
Another person here saying, announcing the results before 8 p.m. illegally. It's disrespecting people who are still voting. It's more or less saying they're and that's of course the central
Absolutely,
point.
that's why the law exists.
That's it. Now another person saying here, that was a journalist who tweeted that, saying, this is just journalists wanting to protect their privilege, because back in 2002 when there was a big upset with Jean-Marie Le Pen getting into the second round, you could kind of see that journalists knew already what was going to happen but couldn't say it until 8 p.m.
Reading the body language.
This is it. They were like, there's a big surprise. So it's kind of, should journalists be allowed to have that privilege? Perhaps not. So there you go. It's a debate that's
ongoing. It's a privilege because we will have the figures by 6:30 p.m. We will not be able to mention them on air before 8 p.m.
It is an extraordinary situation.
Just one sentence perhaps to sum it up. What people are saying, the only thing that's changed in 5 years is the democratization of leaks. Now everybody has access to leaks, not just journalists.
Exactly, with the rise of new media. I think we've got time now to take a look at some of the last campaign rallies which have been taking place. François Hollande has been holding a rally in the southern city of Bordeaux, and our reporter Clovis Casali was there.
All eyes are on Bordeaux tonight, with two candidates visiting and seeking to mobilise supporters. François Bayrou from the Modem and socialist leader François Hollande. Hollande, who's chosen to address his supporters here at the Palmer Park in Bordeaux, an open-air rally where thousands of supporters are gathered. He's more than ever favourite to win this election. Before he took to the stage, we managed to ask him a few questions. He appeared determined, confident. He said that he doesn't think Nicolas Sarkozy deserves a second term.
Given his record, that does mean he probably needs some courage. He needs that because at some point you have to accept the verdict that comes out of the election, and that's the same for everyone. You have to be straight with voters because everyone has to live up to their promises and answer for their acts.
For all candidates, campaigning is exhausting. François Hollande will be spending the next few days in his constituency of Corrèze in the centre of France. He told us he plans to go to his local market in Tulle, a way for him to relax before the big day, Sunday, when the French head to the polls.
Well, meanwhile, Nicolas Sarkozy is also campaigning right down to the wire. Earlier, he addressed crowds of supporters near Paris, and our Luke Brown was there.
A crucial penultimate rally for Nicolas Sarkozy, given that the polls don't make great reading for the UMP Conservatives candidate. In the Parisian suburbs here, he was also clearly addressing his message to the silent majority of France. He reiterated his role in ensuring that no French bank went bust during this financial crisis, and so he could protect French savings and French homeowners. His message was also addressed to the people of France. A lot of talk of French values such as secularism and equality. That is perhaps an attempt to fight the temptation to vote for the far-right National Front Party. All this is very much part of the current strategy of Nicolas Sarkozy. He's not talking about the domestic policy that he could have been leading over the past 5 years. Instead, he is clearly assuming the role and position of challenger, despite the fact, of course, that he is the incumbent. That does demonstrate once again that the battle is far from over, but it is going to be a hard battle.
Well, that's it now for Campaign Chronicles. Thanks very much to Mark Perelman and to James Creedon. Do stay tuned to France 5 and get the latest news coming up very soon.